Hotep, welcome back. Once again, this is Brother Amin Ra coming forth with the science of word sound and how word sound and also the intentions and the references, definitions that we put in back of these words can manifest, shape, form our realities. Okay, as I said in the last segment, which was number 5, that I was going to go into the science of boy. Okay, now some of you may have a particular issue with some of the things I made mention that I'm going to mention when it comes to dealing with boy, because we're so used to using specific words and specific phrases and also exhibiting specific actions because they are comfortable. And a lot of times when it comes to dealing with esoteric, metaphysical, and alchemical information, it is very challenging. I didn't say hard, because hard pretty much puts something out of our control, and it's not out of your control or out of your shaping. Challenge just means you're going to have to put a little bit more effort into it. However, in the end, you stick to it, you will, in so many words, get over the hump or conquer the challenge, if that's a particular word to use. Now, also when it comes to changing self, and when I speak of self, I'm speaking of all of us, dealing with the individual selves, and we're all one self because we all come from the same source. We all are the all, or the Tao, the nature, a Neteru, as used in the ancient Kemetic teachings. Now, back to boy. Let me read the first references or definitions. Boy, a male child or young man. A male child or young man who does a specific job. Keep that in mind. A male child or young man who does a specific job. Number 2, used informally or lightheartedly to refer to a man. Also used as a friendly form to address one man to another, often from an older man to a younger man. Okay. Often used as a form of address to a black male, a servant or worker. Used as a form of address to a male dog. Okay, used to express strong feelings, especially of excitement or admiration, like when most of us or some of us will say, "Oh boy," or those types of things. Okay, now origin, which is the etymology of the word, Middle English, denoting a male servant of unknown origin. Now, let me go deeper into that just by that alone. Once again, I will read that plainly to you. Denoting, origin, Middle English, denoting a male servant of unknown origin. Now, a male servant. You look up servant, most often it's going to refer to slave or someone who's an indentured servant. Okay? Now, this is one of the main words that was used to refer to Moorish males, or male who would be, or what we would call the so-called black persuasion, during times of slavery, times of servitude, and it's still used today because, contrary to popular belief or acceptance, slavery still exists. It's just in another form. We have to remember that the first and the most important slavery is that of the mind, because in order for someone to become a slave physically, it has to be impregnated in the mind and acted on in the mind in order for you to accept the mentality of a slave or slavery. Now, being a servant of all, aiding in the upliftment and enlightenment of other peoples, that's a servant. However, that's a servant who has willingly allowed themselves to make the decision and exhibit the actions of that particular servant. However, when we're talking about slavery, Most often, that's someone who has involuntarily been put into a position of servitude, knowing that if that individual had a choice, that individual wouldn't do that. Individual wouldn't be a slave for profit or a slave of amusement for certain people's, personal or selfish benefits. Now, isn't it a wonder? And I'm sure some of you noticed this too when you were younger, especially young men, that when we were younger, it seemed like everything mama and daddy needed done on a much lower, mundane level, the boys were called into service to do it. Now, if boy is in the collective unconscious of the multiverse, and it references as a male servant, is it a wonder why that is? Let that marinate for a second. Okay? Now, next reference that I wish to go into is that of girl. Because you can't have one without the other, right? Alrighty. Girl. A female child. A person's daughter, especially a young one. Number 2, a young or relatively young woman. A young woman of a specified kind or having a specific job. Once again, we're dealing with a servant. However, just stick with me for a little bit. Not finished yet. Okay. Women who mix socially or belong to a particular group, team, or profession. A person's girlfriend. Female servant. Now, girls are often in households given certain so-called chores or so-called things to do also. And with using boy and girl to refer to our young men and young women, isn't no wonder slavery still exists. We are referring to them in terms and words and vibrations that is aiding them to shaping their reality to be servants, to be slaves. Isn't no wonder when a lot of us become grown-ups, even though we think we have higher consciousness, we're still slaves and have the slave mentality, and it's easier for us to conform to the, I guess you could say, the slavery mindset or the slavery plantation atmosphere. Okay. Origin. Denoting a child or young person of either sex. Ooh. Once again, origin. Denoting a child or young person of either sex, perhaps to Low German Gor or Gur, meaning child. Child is also a servant or a slave, which I'll get into next after I finish with girl. Now, in my life travels, I used to work in a particular part of the city of Atlanta known as Midtown. And if anyone knows about Midtown, Midtown is one of the main places. I don't know if it's still like that. However, at that time, back in the late 90s, it was the haven of gay, lesbian, homosexual activity. And I noticed that the brothers who exhibited more feminine expression in their actions will always refer to themselves as girl. And I would think in mind, like, you're not a girl, you're not a female, you're not a woman. And they will argue me down. Yes, I am a girl. Yes, I am a girl. And you just look it up. Just look it up. And I'm like, what the heck are they talking about? Okay, and it wasn't until some time later when I researched the word girl. It denotes one of either sex. Girl was also used to denote boys who were, or to refer to boys who were weak, could not defend themselves and or their families, or boys who experienced or who were consistently experiencing homosexual relationships and activities. I'll get more into that in the next segment. Hotep.